Chemicals can be very dangerous. They can cause injuries, and at worst they can damage you for life, because they can also cause eczema or even cancer. But we also depend on chemicals in many areas of our working lives, using them in cleaning and maintenance tasks, as well as to keep engines running smoothly. Chemicals can be dangerous for you and your surroundings, even though many of the injuries that you may get from work won't cause you any problems until many years later. So you need to take care of yourself and others, helping you to go on working and enjoying life with your family and friends without suffering any pain or losing your job. This film will show you some of the typical ways in which chemicals are used at sea, situations in which danger may arise. We will show you which precautions you need to take in order to avoid injury. There are many different chemicals on the market. The work needs to be planned carefully, and you should decide which chemicals are right for the job you are about to do. It is important to ensure that all the chemicals have been registered correctly. The supervisor will find workplace instructions and print these for everyone who is going to work with chemicals. All the chemicals used on board are registered in the IT program Health and Safety at Sea.
As a shipping company, it's our responsibility that all chemicals on board are registered at the database at seahealth.dk. This means that our crew members can get access to the various working environments and documentation, such as personal protection equipment notices, and that we also have the possibility of using substitution. An example of that could be that we use water-based paint instead of the more hazardous two-component paints. As a shipping company, we have an obligation to ensure that the workplaces on board are according to rules and regulations. A good example is the local exhaust system in the paint shop. It's used when you mix paints and thinners to ensure that the daily work on board is executed in a safe and sound manner. Furthermore, it's important that all the chemicals we use are of a proper and good quality, meaning that they should be allergy tested and containing no perfume at all.
We have visited Jørn, who has developed eczema from working with chemicals.
6 years ago, I noticed that something was wrong. I had a patch test and so on at the hospital. But they couldn't say what was wrong. I think it was because of my work. You see, I have been in the marine sector for many years. And of course I have been careful. I haven't used loads of detergents because I knew that there's a risk involved in working with any chemicals and detergents. I have always known that I had to be careful when working with chemicals and detergents. Use gloves, use the right substances, and follow the instructions on how to work with both detergents and chemicals. And then there's always the tap. You can't really do much about that. For instance, when I clean the cooker, I use oven cleaner. But when I do this, I have to wear both a breathing mask and gloves. After all, I know that it's a chemical, and you have to take the right precautions. In relation to others on the ship, what I have done is to make sure we talk about things. For instance, when dosing detergents, you have to stick to the declarations and the dosing recommendations, because it's really quite important, and we talk about that a lot. The symptoms I have are, particularly, that my hands itch, and then I get blisters, and it itches quite a lot. And when it's worst, my skin simply cracks. Don't compromise on reading declarations, and be careful when you use chemicals. I don't know when I got ill, but I can say roughly when it was, because I remember that I had to work with some oil on an engine, and I worked without gloves, and the next day I had oil eczema. That's how I know roughly when it was. And since that day, I have always worn gloves when working. When my illness breaks out, there's a lot of work I can't do, such as working with the engine and working with oils. And I can't go into the different rooms on board where we have hydraulic oil and we keep other stuff, which I can't if people have touched the door handle with oily fingers. Then I can't go there. So I have to think about this every day. When I get a rash, it may spread all over my body. It's not just on my hands. And it's not just in my face. In my face you don't see it a lot, but under my feet, my ankles, my shins, that's where it gets really bad. My illness cannot be cured. It sticks with you for life. But you learn to live with it. You have to learn to live with it.
One group of products that can be harmful includes all the different products you use for cleaning engine parts. But what is it that actually makes you ill?
An occupational medicine department gets people referred who have become ill at work. We have to assess what they have worked with. We have to find out what is wrong with them, and we have to comment on the causal relation. We do this partly so that we can help report an illness, so that people can get compensation, and partly to prevent that more people in the workplaces don't get ill, and finally, to ensure that the patients we have can get back to work. And in relation to the work environment at sea, there's a huge area of skin diseases, which is probably the most frequent work-related disorder at sea, which may occur in connection with cleaning, in connection with oil products in the engine, or hydraulic oils in connection with maintenance. In terms of the respiratory area, there are of course fumes from paint, which can be irritating and cause chronic bronchitis in some cases, along with smoking of course. And then there are fumes from things in the engine, which can irritate the respiratory tract, and which may cause bronchitis or respiratory disorders. If someone is then taken ill because of their work, and this applies to work at sea too, then of course it's important to report this to the authorities, which means the National Board of Industrial Injuries or the Danish Maritime Authority, to make them aware that something is going on that is making people ill, and of course, so that they can start a compensation case.
What can you do to avoid causing injury to yourself and your colleagues? Your supervisor must make sure that you get the right information about the hazards related to the products you use and about how you can do your job without damaging your health. You must make sure that you are well prepared before starting work. The workplace instruction tells you everything you need to know. There is one workplace instruction for each product: detergents, paint for the deck, or oils for the engine room. There's a lot of information in the workplace instruction, but you should pay special attention to the section on health hazards and the section on how work should be done on board. It is important to know how the substance can get into your body, for instance, whether this happens by inhalation or through direct contact with your skin. The Safety Committee works to ensure compliance with safety measures in all situations, including working with chemicals. It is the job of the Safety Committee to approve risk assessments and make decisions about new chemicals. This is also where overall planning takes place.
Sometimes work in the engine room can be very exciting, sometimes it can be very dangerous. Our routine daily jobs, we use the chemicals a lot. That includes cleaning of the filters, dosing of the cooling system waters. Using the chemicals, you have to take care for yourself and for your colleagues. This is obtained using the right personal protective equipment and right ventilation measures. So the most important part, take care for yourself and for the others.
deck has to be prepared and painted, and there are many things to consider before work can begin. Which paint should be used, and what are the hazards connected to the paint you choose? Each product has a code number. You need to find this number in the code number table chart and read about the precautions you need to take. There are two numbers on the product. The first number shows the hazard related to inhalation of the paint, and the other number indicates the hazard related to skin contact. The higher the number, the more harmful the paint is. In this case, it's epoxy paint, and the workplace instruction for the mixture show the numbers 3-5. Two-component products such as epoxy are highly developed products. It is important to comply with the mixing ratio to ensure that the paint cures correctly. You must find the two numbers in the table chart, and then you will see clearly how the work should be done. You need to put on certain personal protective equipment before you mix paints. Gloves, for instance. Always wear cotton gloves under your gloves to reduce the problem of sweaty hands. In the paint shop, there is a local exhaust system above the mixing table, so you don't need to wear a breathing mask here. If you're only going to paint a small area, a filter mask will often be sufficient. Everybody else on board must be protected against the harmful chemicals that you're working with, so do remember to inform them and prevent access to your working area. In this case, where epoxy is being used, the area has to remain closed off during the entire curing time. When you paint the deck, make sure the surface you're painting is no hotter than 35 degrees Celsius. Remember that the degree of evaporation increases as the temperature of the surface being painted rises. If it's hotter than 35 degrees, you must increase the first code number by 1 and wear extra protection. If possible, make sure that the wind blows the paint fumes away from you. When you have completed the work, remember to leave the barriers preventing access to the area in place. You now need to take off all your clothes, and if you've been working with epoxy, you must change in a separate shower and changing room. If a separate changing room is not available permanently, one should be made available temporarily, and this should be stated in the risk assessment. It is important that you are careful when you remove your gloves. Make sure that you do not have any contact with the epoxy. First, slide one glove off partially, then the other, then fold both gloves off your hands. Remember to wash your hands well in a wash basin fitted with a tap that you do not need to touch. This may not be easy, but it is necessary if you work with harmful chemicals. If you're going to paint a larger area with paint that has a higher code number, you must use a breathing apparatus with an air supply. These two are helping each other to make sure that everything works correctly before they start work. When the work is done, remember to change in a separate changing room. You must also remember to dispose of all your waste in a secure way. You and your colleagues must comply with a few rules when working with paint. First, you should use the least harmful paint possible. When you are painting indoors, choose the least harmful paint by using the product selection table. The second rule is that you must remember to read the workplace instruction. Third, remember to use the local exhaust in the paint shop when mixing and cleaning. As long as the exhaust system is working, you do not need to wear a breathing mask. Fourth, check the code number on the code number table chart in the paint shop. Turn the table chart over and use the personal protective equipment indicated. The fifth rule to remember is to wash your hands well when working with paint, both before and after going to the toilet, because the skin on your private parts is very sensitive. There are a number of special rules you must follow when working with two-component products, such as epoxy. Avoid all skin contact with the paint. This also applies to your colleagues, so don't touch anything where there is epoxy on your gloves. Always remember to change in a separate changing room. This must have a separate shower and a wash basin fitted with a tap that you do not need to touch. Never spray two-component products. In the engine room, as in all other parts of the ship, there are many demanding jobs. Once the engine is running, it must be checked continually to make sure that everything is running smoothly. This means plenty of maintenance work and lots of cleaning tasks. Let's have a look at a couple of examples involving the use of chemicals when you need to take extra health precautions, both for your own sake and for the sake of your colleagues. Here is a typical situation. An engine part has to be cleaned, and this can be done either in the washing machine or in a cleaning basin. A number of chemicals can remove oil residue efficiently. The question is, how little will do? Both diesel and carbon remover are strong substances that are not healthy for you or your colleagues. So if coconut oil will do, use that instead. Here, the AB is taking a close look at the workplace instruction before he starts work. Note that he is cleaning under the local exhaust. After being cleaned in the cleaning basin, engine parts can be placed in the ultrasonic cleaner like this. This will remove the last residues of oil. Another option would be to use a washing machine to prevent any contact with the chemicals. Make sure you wear approved gloves for this work. Always wear cotton gloves under your gloves to reduce the problem of sweaty hands. Here we are on board a smaller ship, and the AB is checking the workplace instructions on the computer using the Health and Safety at Sea program before cleaning